Hello everybody and welcome to my video on the Ilford Sprite 35-2, the second generation of the Ilford Sprite reusable 35mm camera. Why do we specify that it's reusable? Because, well, it shares a lot in common with single-use cameras. The Sprite 2 is a 35mm point-and-shoot camera, which means basically once you have film in it, you just point it at your subject and take photos. It has no light meter, a leaf shutter type of shutter. It has a single shutter speed of 1/100th of a second. It does have a flash built into the camera right here, and the flash sync is the one available shutter speed. This is also exactly the same camera as the Kodak Ultra F9 and the Agfa Photo reusable camera. It is very similar to the double film show and the Vibe 501F, as well as the Kodak i60 and the generic reusable camera like this, which is sold for about half the price on AliExpress. And all of those cameras were made by the same company, which we'll get to in a sec. The target market for this camera is toy or fun users, people who are looking for a low-stress, light-to-carry camera. It's completely plastic. It is, from a functional standpoint, and generally speaking, an internal construction standpoint, this type of camera goes back to at least the early 1980s. If you've seen my double show film video, I said in that video that there was a camera that I found from about 1983, at least I think that's when the film expired in it, that had the same exact internals and film door. And yeah, this looks a whole lot like the double film show. So anyway, nothing new or groundbreaking in terms of technology here. It is very light, it comes with a lanyard, and it's meant to be carried and used. It's produced by the Corex Corporation in China, and this specific iteration of this body design seems to have been released in 2020, and insofar as I can tell, the production of this body style is still ongoing. So if you have your Ilford Sprite 2, we're going to go over what everything on the camera is, and we're going to start with the top. This is your film rewind knob and lever. So when you're done rewinding the film, you just flip this little lever out, and you can rewind the film. This is your flash armed light. When your flash is ready to be used, this will light up. Frame count window, shutter release button. On the back of the camera, we have your viewfinder window. This is what you look through to get an idea of what's going to be in your photos. Film advance knob right here, or not really knob, film advance gear. And then this is your film door. This is what will open in a moment to load film. On the bottom, we have the film rewind button right there, and your battery chamber right there. On this side, we have the film back release, and on this side, we have a strap lug so that you can connect your wrist strap to the camera. And if you saw my unboxing video, there is a wrist strap included with these. To get into the camera, we push this button down on the side, and then that allows us access to the inside of the camera. Here we have the film cassette chamber, which will pop this up right now because we're going to load film in just a second. This is the shutter area right here, and you might notice the shutter area is curved. And what this does is this causes the film to curve over the shutter area right here, and that allows more of your image to be in focus and accounts for the field curvature of the lens. You can see the actual shutter down in there. This little gear right here is turned as the film sprockets move over it, and it arms the shutter. Film take-up spool, and these are the film pressure ridges right here. What these do is these put pressure on the film to keep it at that shape. However, I will note that every camera I've used that has ridges like this, the ridges do tend to leave 3 horizontal lines in all of your images, which are noticeable with thinner negatives. So now that we have the camera back open, we're going to grab a roll of 35mm film. Any 35mm film will work with an asterisk. That is that this has a single shutter speed. So in general, faster films work better. And in the tips section, I'll go over some of that stuff. So once the film is loaded, we're going to push the film rewind knob down, if it's going to cooperate. There it goes. Pull out a bit of a leader, and on the bottom of the film take-up spool there are some little hooks. Oh, that's messed up. We're just going to try and get the film. So we're going to pull out our leader, and we're going to try to get that film hooked onto one of those hooks. Just like that. Nope, I don't like that at all. And the reason I don't like that is because the leader is poking out just a little bit right there. So we don't want that. Let's try that again. Still not good, but it'll do. There we go. So once we've got the film loaded, we just close the film back. Now we're going to look on the frame counter right here. And you can probably see that that says S right now. If we take a photo, advance, take a photo, advance, and now you can see that says 1. So that's where we want to be when we start to take photos. Okay, something to remember about film is that it is one and done. You can use it a single time, which is to say it can record an image one time on each piece of film with a proper shutter speed and exposure, or it can record all of the light that reaches it in an uncontrolled manner by doing something like this. Once you have your film loaded, you don't want to open up the back of the camera. However, I wanted to show you what happens inside of the camera when you take a photo. So you're going to take a photo, trigger the shutter, now you're going to advance the film. The sprocket holes engage with that little gear there, which arms the shutter, and as you advance the film, it moves over the back. So every time you take a photo, which the photo area is right in here, you advance the film, and the film that is in the photo area moves past it, and then new film is there to be used. Now, so you're going through your day, you're going to rewind your film. You want to keep your film back closed the whole time, but I'm going to show you what happens inside your camera when you rewind your film. You push the film rewind button. The film back keeps the cassette in place. And then you just rewind it like this. And it will rewind the whole way back into the film cassette. At this point, then it's safe to open up your camera, pull out your film rewind knob and post, pull out this roll of film, and what you want to do is rewind it so that you don't have a leader, because that way you'll know that the film's been used and you don't accidentally use it a second time. And then you grab another roll of film and load it and keep going. And that's how you load film in the camera. Next thing we're going to do is put a battery in the camera so that we can use the flash. To put a battery in the camera, we just lift up the battery chamber door here, and there is an indicator inside that shows us how to load the battery. Let me turn this around so you can see it as you would most likely see it inside when you're holding it. So down here should be the negative terminal. Yep, and it's a single AAA battery. So we're just going to slide it right in like that, close the door. All that the battery does is power the flash. One other thing, on the battery door itself you can see where the negative and positive terminals are marked. There we go. Okay. For whatever reason, the capacitor did not want to charge up at first. So you have the battery loaded into the camera. To use the flash, all you have to do is slide this switch over so that it's on, well, you have a little flash symbol right here, but an easier way to remember it is that when the switch is on the side of the camera body with the flash is on. You can also see this light on top here that indicates the flash is ready to be used. When you take a photo, it triggers the flash. And then the flash will recharge again. You can see that's about the recharge rate. So not a super fast recharge rate, but it still comes back up fairly quickly. So Since we don't need the battery for anything but the flash, I'm just going to take that right out right now. So let's go over everything that we've just covered and put it together to take a photo with the camera. What you're going to do is you're going to look through the viewfinder. You're going to compose your scene. You're going to see what's through here. You're going to compose your scene until you get it to be pleasing. If you're inside or in dark lighting, you're going to want to turn on your flash. Or if you're outside in full sun, you can leave it off. Take a photo by pressing the shutter button and advance, just like that. Can you do double exposures? Unfortunately not. This camera does not allow you to do double exposures because you have to advance the film in order to rearm the shutter. So there is no double exposure mechanism in this camera. So all of those things covered, let's talk about a few tips that you can use to make the most out of your Sprite 2. The first tip I've got is to use 400 ISO film for the best results, and that's even in full sun outside, and there's a couple of reasons for that. 400 ISO film tends to be pretty forgiving. There are some good and relatively affordable options like the HP5 Plus from Ilford, but also Kodak Ultramax would work in here. Fuji Superior 400 would also work in here, for instance, both of those being color films. The color films especially have a lot of forgiveness in the way that they are designed, so you can overexpose them pretty significantly. One other thing about overexposing film with this camera is that if it's overexposed, you are less likely to have those 3 lines running down every one of your images because of the ridge style pressure plate thing here in the back, because these 3 central ridges do that. On every camera I've owned of this style, they do that. Another thing is that these are really easy. They're very light. They're very easy to carry, so definitely do just that. Carry them around with you and use them. They're a perfectly good camera to use for fun shots. They're not going to take exceptional shots, but definitely fun shots. One note is that don't slam it around. When I use the double film show, if the camera hit something, hit it too hard, like I think it hit a tree one time and a sign another, the back popped open on that camera. So I would not recommend letting this slam into things too much because of the risk of the design inherent in this build with the back popping open. And the last tip I have for you is just to enjoy it, because they're fun cameras. They're low stress. They're meant just to be used and take enjoyable images, not ones which are technically perfect. So for notes, Corex, if you are watching, if you design another generation of this type of camera, these are pretty limited in use. A single shutter speed with a flash and an adjustable aperture. But it would be really nice if these had a multiple exposure switch and the ability to shoot in bulb mode. That would make these significantly more versatile in the future. So a couple things not to do with your camera. It's always a good idea to disarm the shutter on a mechanical camera before you put it away, simply because that takes the stress off of the springs and it'll help the shutter to last longer. Also, don't leave your camera in your car because the heat and the cold can affect the plastic and cause components like the body can be affected by heat and cold, extreme heat and cold, as they'd be exposed to in a car. Don't let it get wet. There are a handful of metal components inside which could be damaged by getting wet. And just remember that your Ilford Sprite 35-2 is, well, I usually say it's a precision tool, and that's kind of unfair to say to precision cameras, but it is a fun tool. So as long as you take care of your camera will take care of you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.